Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. The morning chill of a late October day in Portland carried a subtle edge, the kind that made you pull your jacket tighter and quicken your steps. For Ethan Caldwell, Sundays were a sacred ritual. Brewed coffee, the low hum of the kids' show in the background, and his 9-year-old daughter, Mia, trying to stop her younger brother, Noah, from sneaking bacon to their golden retriever. But this Sunday felt different, as if the frost outside had slipped into the house, whispering something Ethan couldn't quite name. He grabbed the keys to his wife Nora's cherished midnight blue Audi Q5, a car she treated with the kind of care most people reserve for heirlooms. Ethan was headed to the shop to swap out the summer tires for winter ones, a mundane errand, the kind that went unnoticed until the first snowfall. He slid into the driver's seat, pressed the ignition, and froze. The seat was warm, as expected, set to its usual cozy level. But the passenger seat was warm too, dialed to medium. His brow furrowed. Only 2 people had access to this car, him and Nora. It wasn't the sort of detail most would linger on, but Ethan wasn't most people. He'd been scorched by betrayal before, back in Denver, where his first marriage to Claire unraveled. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a slow bleed of trust after he'd fallen into a 6-month affair with a colleague named Rachel. It started innocently, with shared coffee breaks, and ended with Claire discovering the truth through a mutual friend's careless remark. Claire didn't rage. She simply packed her bags and left. Ethan had spent years rebuilding himself, moving to Portland for a fresh start, vowing never to be that man again. Nora, with her sharp wit and warm smile, had been his second chance, a marketing strategist who seemed to love him fiercely, flaws and all. They'd built a life together, 2 kids, a craftsman-style home, a rhythm that felt solid. Until now, the warm passenger seat gnawed at him. He thought of Nora, her auburn hair always neatly pulled back, her laugh that could light up a room. She was a senior manager at a tech firm, climbing the ranks with a kind of grace Ethan admired. He'd never doubted her loyalty, not once in their 7 years together. But doubt, once it takes root, grows fast. When he returned home, Nora was in the foyer, slipping on her scarf, her purse slung over one shoulder. "I'm running to the boutique district," she said, flashing a quick smile. "Need anything?" Ethan shook his head, forcing a grin. "Nah, just have fun." She pecked his cheek and was gone, her boots clicking on the hardwood. But Ethan's mind wasn't on boutiques. It was on that seat warmer, a tiny detail that felt like a crack in a dam. 3 hours later, Nora returned with a single paper bag, a small haul for someone who could spend hours browsing. Ethan, sprawled on the couch, glanced up. "Hey, I think I left my wallet in your car this morning. Mind if I check?" Her eyes flickered just for a second. "Oh, sure, it's probably in the center console," she said a touch too fast. Outside, Ethan opened the Audi's door. The wallet was exactly where she'd said, but the passenger seat heater was off now, its little orange light dark. His pulse quickened. This wasn't about a wallet anymore. That night, they moved through their routine like actors in a well-rehearsed play. Nora laughed with the kids, tucked them in, slipped into bed beside him. They made love, and she was warm, present, her fingers tracing familiar paths. But Ethan's mind was elsewhere, replaying that flicker in her eyes, the warmth of that empty seat. The next morning, while pretending to review spreadsheets from his home office, Ethan made a call. His name was Marcus Reed, a private investigator with a gravelly voice and a reputation for cutting through suburban facades. A former cop turned freelancer, Marcus didn't mince words. "If she's straying, I'll know in a week," he said. "But brace yourself, truth's a sharp blade." Ethan wired the deposit, his stomach churning. He didn't want to be this guy, the one who snooped, who suspected. But he'd been blind once before, and he'd sworn never again. 4 days later, Marcus called him to a nondescript office downtown. Ethan's hands were clammy as he sat across from the PI, whose desk was cluttered with coffee cups and case files. Marcus leaned back, his gray eyes steady. "She's not sleeping with him. Not yet. But she's dancing close to the edge." Ethan's throat tightened. "Who?" "Her boss, Gavin Holt. VP of strategy at her company. He's got a history. Divorced once, left his last wife for a junior exec. He's circling your wife, Ethan." Marcus slid a USB drive across the desk. 2 audio clips. She's holding him off, but Holt's persistent. He's dangling a promotion. Invited her to a strategy summit next month. You've got a window, but it's narrow. Ethan drove home with the USB burning a hole in his pocket. That night, alone in his office, he listened. Holt's voice was smooth, practiced, like a salesman closing a deal. You're too good for middle management, Nora. I can open doors for you, but you've got to meet me halfway. You know how this works. Nora's laugh was tight, nervous. I'm married, Gavin. Doesn't mean we can't have a conversation, he replied, his tone slick. Just ideas, maybe a drink. That word, maybe, hit Ethan like a punch. He didn't sleep. Instead, he replayed the audio, each word carving deeper. But this time, he wouldn't repeat his past mistakes. He wouldn't let betrayal blindside him. He'd confront it head-on, and if Nora was slipping, he'd make sure the man pulling her away paid a price. Not with violence, but with something far more devastating. By Friday, a storm was brewing over Portland, dark clouds stacking like an omen. Ethan stood on their back deck, a beer in hand, staring at the overgrown lawn. Inside, Nora was making cookies with Mia and Noah, her laughter floating through the open window. She looked flawless, her cheeks rosy from the oven's heat, her hair loose. To anyone else, she was the ideal wife, the doting mother. But Ethan saw the truth now, or at least its shadow. He wasn't just fighting for his marriage. He was fighting for control, for the life he'd rebuilt after Denver. And as he sipped his beer, watching the storm roll in, he knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not until he'd exposed every secret and turned the tables on the man who thought he could take what was his. The Portland sky hung heavy with rain by Monday morning, the kind of drizzle that soaked through jackets and clung to skin. Ethan Caldwell moved through the motions of family life, pouring cereal for Mia and Noah, wiping up a juice spill, nodding as Nora reminded him about parent-teacher conferences. Her kiss on his cheek felt like a formality, her have a good day love rehearsed. Ethan smiled back, but his chest was tight, his mind replaying Gavin Holt's oily voice from the audio clips. Just ideas, maybe a drink. Nora left for work, her Audi pulling out of the driveway, and Ethan sat in the quiet kitchen, the kids' chatter fading as the school bus whisked them away. He wasn't going to work today. He had other plans. Ethan's home office became his war room. He scribbled notes on a legal pad. Times Nora left for work, her recent habit of wearing a new jasmine-scented perfume. The way her text had grown clipped, less warm. He wasn't proud of it, but he checked her phone while she showered the night before. No messages from Gavin, no incriminating emails, just a sterile absence that screamed louder than any evidence. Either she was careful or she was using another app. Ethan didn't know which was worse. He called Marcus Reed, the PI, whose voice crackled through the phone with grim efficiency. She's still pushing back against Holt, Marcus said, but he's wearing her down. He's framing it as mentorship, offering her a lead on a high-profile project. I got a new clip. Holt's getting bold. You want it? Ethan's jaw clenched. Send it. The audio arrived an hour later. Ethan listened alone, his laptop glowing in the dim office. Gavin's tone was all charm, laced with pressure. You're wasting your potential, Nora. I'm offering you a seat at the table, but you've got to show you're serious. The summit's a start. Nora's voice was softer, hesitant. I'll think about it, Gavin. I need to talk to Ethan. Gavin chuckled, low and smug. Talk to him after. Trust me, he'll understand. Ethan's grip on the mouse tightened. He didn't trust himself to listen again. Instead, he decided to test Nora. That evening, as she sat on the couch scrolling through her tablet, he leaned against the doorway, casual but deliberate. Hey, let's get away, he said, his voice light. Just us. A weekend in the mountains like we used to. Nora's fingers paused on the screen. She looked up, her smile tight. This month? I'd love to, but there's a work thing coming up. A team retreat. Maybe after. Ethan's heart sank, but he kept his face neutral. A retreat? Sounds fun. When's that? She shifted, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Not sure yet. It's tentative. I'll check my calendar. Her eyes darted away, and Ethan knew. The retreat was Gavin's summit. She wasn't lying outright, but she was hiding the truth, and that was enough to twist a knife. That night, he lay beside her, her breathing soft and steady, but he felt the distance between them like a canyon. She'd curled against him, her head on his shoulder, but her warmth felt like a mask. He stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. Her hesitation, her new perfume, the passenger seat warmer. He wasn't imagining this. Something was shifting, and he needed to act before it consumed them. The next morning, Ethan called Marcus again. "What else do you have on Holt?" he asked, his voice low. The kids' laughter muffled downstairs. Marcus didn't hesitate. "He's slippery, but not invincible." I dug deeper. Holt's been warned by HR before. 2 years ago, a junior employee filed a complaint about inappropriate comments. It got swept under the rug, but it's there. And here's the kicker. He's leveraging your past against you. Ethan's blood ran cold. "My past?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "He mentioned your first marriage to Nora. Said, Ethan's got a history, doesn't he? Once a cheater, always a cheater. Either Nora told him, or he did his homework. He's framing you as the problem to pull her closer." Ethan's hand tightened around the phone. His affair in Denver wasn't public knowledge. Not unless Nora had shared it, or someone had dug deep. The violation stung, but it also lit a fire. Gavin wasn't just targeting Nora. He was weaponizing Ethan's shame. That was a mistake. Ethan didn't yell or storm out. He went cold, strategic. He booked a table at their favorite waterfront bistro, a place with fairy lights and a view of the Willamette River. Nora arrived that evening in a deep green sweater, her lips painted a shade bolder than usual. She kissed him hello, her smile bright but fragile. They talked about the kids, work, the usual script of a couple still in love. But Ethan was watching, and so was Marcus, seated discreetly at a corner table, his camera hidden. Over dessert, Ethan leaned forward, his voice calm but pointed. "Nora, are you happy?" Her spoon hesitated midair. "Of course I am," she said, her eyes searching his. "What? Are you tempted?" He let the word hang, heavy and sharp. Her face froze, a flicker of panic crossing her features. "Tempted? Ethan, where's this coming from?" "From a seat warmer," he said softly. "From a new perfume. From a text you don't let me see." The silence was suffocating. Nora's eyes glistened, her voice barely a whisper. "I haven't done anything, Ethan. I swear." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a slim envelope, and slid it across the table. "Open it." Her hands trembled as she lifted the flap. Inside were photos from Marcus's surveillance. Nora and Gavin at a coffee shop, their heads bent close. Gavin's hand brushing her arm in a parking lot. Her Audi parked outside his condo on a Saturday she'd claimed was a work errand. Nora's face drained of color. She set the envelope down, her gaze fixed on the table. "I know how this starts," Ethan said, his voice steady but tired. "I've lived it. I'm not judging you, Nora, but if you keep walking this path, I won't follow." She looked up, tears spilling over. "I didn't touch him. I didn't cross that line." "But you thought about it," he said. "And that's enough." They drove home in silence, the rain streaking the windshield. Nora cried quietly in the passenger seat, but Ethan didn't comfort her. He needed space, not to grieve, but to plan. Gavin Holt wasn't just a threat. He was a predator, and Ethan wasn't going to let him slink away. He'd gather more than proof. He'd build a case, a weapon, something to dismantle the man who'd dared to come for his wife. And Nora? She'd have to choose, but Ethan wasn't waiting for her decision to act. The rain didn't let up in Portland, turning the streets into a slick, reflective maze that mirrored Ethan Caldwell's mood. The week after the bistro confrontation was a study in restraint. He and Nora moved through their Craftsman home, like chess pieces, calculated and distant, each waiting for the other to make a move. Ethan played the part of the steady husband, helping Mia with her math homework, tossing a football with Noah, nodding at Nora's small talk about her day. But his smiles were tight, his eyes sharp, watching for cracks in her facade. Nora, meanwhile, was a portrait of guilt, her gestures overly deliberate. Lingering hugs for the kids, elaborate dinners of roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes, a new softness in her voice when she called him love. It wasn't reconciliation, it was performance, and Ethan wasn't buying it. His focus wasn't on Nora alone anymore. Gavin Holt, the VP who'd slithered into their lives, was the real target. Ethan needed to know his enemy, to map the man's weaknesses. He started small, tailing Gavin discreetly after work. He didn't tell Marcus Reed, the PI, about these outings. He wanted to see for himself. Gavin's routine was predictable. Mornings at a sleek gym near his downtown condo, lunches at upscale cafes, evenings at a cocktail bar with a revolving door of colleagues and women. Ethan watched from his car, a baseball cap pulled low, noting every detail. The way Gavin's hand lingered on a coworker's shoulder, the smug tilt of his head when he laughed. The man was a performer too, but his stage was bigger, his stakes higher. Marcus's reports filled in the gaps. Gavin wasn't just flirting with Nora. He was juggling multiple women, at least 2 others from their tech firm. Marcus had photos. Gavin with a blonde account manager in a hotel lobby, another with a brunette from sales at a late-night diner. There were texts, too, intercepted from a burner phone Gavin thought was secure. One read, "You're next in line for the big role, but you know what I expect." The recipient wasn't Nora, but the pattern was clear. Gavin didn't just want affairs. He wanted control, dangling promotions like bait. Nora had been tempted, but she wasn't the only one caught in his net. At home, the tension thickened. One night, as Ethan folded laundry in the living room, Nora sat on the couch, her knees pulled up, staring at her phone. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "I went to HR today," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan paused, a kid's sock in his hand. "About what?" "Gavin," she said, swallowing hard. "I told them about the pressure, the summit invite, the inappropriate comments. I told them I went to his condo that day. I said I was running errands." Ethan's pulse spiked, but he kept his face neutral. "Everything." She nodded, her chin trembling. "I admitted I didn't stop it right away. That I considered it. I told them I messed up, Ethan, but I didn't cross that line." He set the sock down, his hands steady despite the storm inside. "Why now?" "Because I saw you at the bistro," she said, tears spilling over. "The way you looked at me, like I was someone else. I don't want to be her." Ethan leaned back, studying her. "You still chose to go to his place, Nora. You chose to lie." "I know," she whispered, "and I hate myself for it." He didn't respond. Her confession was a start, but it wasn't enough. Ethan had learned in Denver that apologies didn't erase intent. He needed more than words. He needed leverage, not just over Nora, but over Gavin. And he was already building it. The next morning, Ethan took a different approach. He reached out to a woman named Sarah Klein, a former employee at Nora's firm who'd left abruptly a year earlier. Posing as a journalist investigating workplace culture, he contacted her through a fake email account. To his surprise, she agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop in Beaverton, far from the city's tech hub. Sarah was in her early 30s, with sharp eyes and a guarded posture, her hands wrapped tightly around a latte. "I knew someone would ask eventually," she said, skipping pleasantries. "What do you want to know about Gavin Holt?" Ethan leaned forward, keeping his voice low. "What did he do to you?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "He promised me a promotion if I played nice. Dinners, late-night meetings, texts that started professional and turned personal. When I said no, he made my life hell, spread rumors, tanked my projects. I filed a complaint, but the company buried it. I left to save my sanity. Would you go on record?" Ethan asked. "If there were others?" She studied him, her eyes narrowing. "You're not a journalist, are you?" Ethan hesitated, then shook his head. "No, I'm a husband whose wife Gavin targeted." Sarah's expression softened, but her voice stayed firm. "If you got others willing to talk, I'm in. But you need to move fast. Men like him don't stop." That night, Ethan sat in his office, the house dark except for the glow of his laptop. He mapped out his next steps, Sarah's testimony, Marcus's photos, the intercepted texts. It was a powder keg, but he needed one more spark. He called Marcus. "Can you get me into Gavin's digital life? Emails, accounts, anything he's hiding?" Marcus whistled low. "That's a tall order, but doable. Give me 2 days. It'll cost extra." "Whatever it takes," Ethan said. As he hung up, Nora appeared in the doorway, her silhouette soft in a pale blue robe. "You're up late," she said, her voice tentative. "Work," he lied, closing his laptop. She stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "Ethan, I need you to know I'm done with secrets. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." He looked at her, his heart torn between love and distrust. "Then prove it," he said. "Go back to HR. Name every woman you think Gavin's targeted. Write it down, Nora, all of it. Not for me, for you." Her breath caught, but she nodded. "Okay, I will." As she turned to leave, Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Got something big. Meet me tomorrow." Ethan's pulse quickened. The game was shifting, and he was one move away from checkmate. But as he watched Nora disappear down the hall, he wondered if winning this fight would cost him the one thing he was fighting for, her. The Portland air was sharp with the bite of early November, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones and made every decision feel heavier. Ethan Caldwell's world had become a tightrope, each step deliberate, each moment weighed against the risk of falling. His marriage to Nora hung by a thread, not broken but frayed, stretched thin by her near betrayal and his own relentless pursuit of Gavin Holt, the VP who'd tried to unravel their life. At home, the facade held breakfast with Mia and Noah, Nora's careful smiles, Ethan's measured responses. But beneath it, a current of tension hummed, electric and dangerous. Ethan's meeting with Marcus Reed, the private investigator, was set for a dingy diner on the edge of town, far from prying eyes. Marcus slid into the booth, his leather jacket creaking, a manila folder in hand. "You wanted Holt's digital life?" he said, his voice low. "I got it. Emails, cloud backups, even his private Slack messages. Guy's sloppy. Uses the same password for everything." Ethan's pulse quickened as he opened the folder. Inside were printouts, emails from Gavin to another woman at the firm, promising a fast track if she joined him for a weekend in Seattle. Slack messages to a colleague bragging about closing the deal with a new hire. A calendar invite for a private dinner with Nora, marked as confidential. There was more. A hidden folder on Gavin's cloud drive with photos, some innocuous, others too intimate for a married man to be sharing. Ethan's stomach churned, but he kept his face stone cold. "This is enough to bury him," Ethan said, his voice steady. Marcus leaned back, sipping his coffee. "It's a start. But guys like Holt, they've got friends in high places. You want him gone for good? You need to hit him where it hurts, publicly." Ethan nodded, his mind already racing. He wasn't just after Gavin's job. He wanted his reputation in ashes. But he needed Nora to play her part, to prove she was all in. That evening, as the kids watched a movie in the living room, Ethan found her in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with a focus that felt like avoidance. He leaned against the counter, his tone calm but unyielding. "Did you go back to HR like you said?" Nora's knife paused mid-chop. She looked up, her eyes tired but resolute. "I did. I wrote a formal complaint. Named 2 other women I've heard rumors about. I gave them everything, dates, messages, the condo visit. They're investigating." Ethan studied her, searching for a lie. "You name names?" "Yes," she said, her voice cracking. "It might cost me my job, Ethan, but I did it. I'm done protecting him, or myself." For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a flicker of respect. Not love, not yet, but something close. "Good," he said. "Keep pushing. If they try to bury it, don't let them." She nodded, wiping her hands on a towel. "What about you? What are you doing?" He hesitated, then chose truth over secrecy. "I'm making sure Gavin can't hurt anyone else. Not you, not them, not anyone." Nora's eyes widened, but she didn't ask more. Maybe she didn't want to know. Ethan didn't care. He was past explaining himself. His plan was moving, and it was bigger than HR complaints. Over the next 2 days, Ethan coordinated with Sarah Klein, the former employee who'd agreed to talk. Through her, he connected with another woman, Jenna Torres, who'd left the firm 6 months earlier after Gavin's mentorship turned predatory. Jenna was reluctant but furious, her voice shaking as she shared screenshots of late-night texts from Gavin, each one a thinly veiled proposition. "I thought I was alone," she told Ethan over coffee, her hands trembling. "If you've got others, I'll back you up." Ethan now had 3 women, Sarah, Jenna, and Nora, plus Marcus's digital haul. It was a ticking bomb, but he needed to light the fuse. He met Marcus again, this time at a park bench under a gray drizzle. "I want this public," Ethan said. "Media, social media, whatever it takes. Can you make it anonymous?" Marcus grinned, a rare crack in his grim demeanor. "I know a guy who knows a guy. We'll leak it to a local outlet, maybe a few bloggers who hate corporate sleaze. Redact the names, keep it clean. It'll spread like wildfire." "Do it," Ethan said, "but make sure it hits hard." By Friday, the plan was in motion. Marcus's contact sent a package to a Portland news site known for exposing corporate misconduct. It included redacted emails, texts, and a summary of the women's complaints, all tied to Gavin Holt's name. Ethan didn't tell Nora. She didn't need to know. Not yet. But that night, as they sat across from each other at dinner, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face paling. "What?" Ethan asked, feigning ignorance. "It's work," she said, her voice unsteady. "Gavin's been suspended. Pending investigation." Ethan raised an eyebrow, his heart pounding, but his expression neutral. "That was fast." Nora set her phone down, her hands shaking. "I didn't think HR would move this quickly. I thought they'd protect him." "Maybe someone else spoke up," Ethan said, his tone careful. "Sounds like he had it coming." She looked at him, her eyes searching for something, guilt, triumph, anything. Ethan held her gaze, giving nothing away. Later, as he cleared the dishes, his phone pinged. "A text from Marcus. It's out. Check the news tomorrow." Ethan barely slept, his mind buzzing with anticipation. By morning, the story had broken. A headline screamed across a local outlet's website. Tech VP suspended amid allegations of workplace harassment. The article was vague on names, but brutal on details. Multiple complaints, inappropriate messages, a pattern of targeting female employees. Social media was already picking it up, with anonymous accounts amplifying the story. Gavin's name trended locally by noon. At home, Nora was a mess, pacing the kitchen, her phone glued to her hand. "This is everywhere," she said, her voice trembling. "People at work are freaking out. They think there's more coming." Ethan poured coffee, his calm a stark contrast to her panic. "There probably is," he said. "Men like that don't stop at one." She looked at him, her eyes glistening. "Did you have anything to do with this?" He set the coffee pot down, meeting her gaze. "I did what I had to do to protect us. You should be glad someone's finally stopping him." Nora didn't respond, but the silence between them wasn't hostile. It was heavy with unspoken truths. Ethan had won this round, but the war wasn't over. Gavin was down, not out, and Ethan knew men like him didn't vanish quietly. He needed one final blow to ensure Gavin's ruin was permanent, and to see if Nora was truly on his side. The Portland winter settled in like a quiet judge, its gray skies and biting chill casting a somber light over Ethan and Nora Caldwell's life. The fallout from Gavin Holt's suspension was still rippling, a stone thrown into the calm of their world. Ethan had orchestrated the leak that exposed Gavin's predatory behavior, and now the tech VP's name was synonymous with scandal. Social media churned with speculation, local news outlets dug deeper, and Nora's firm was scrambling to contain the PR nightmare. But Ethan wasn't celebrating. Victory felt hollow when his marriage was still a battlefield, scarred by distrust and half-spoken truths. Home was a delicate dance. Nora moved with the caution of someone expecting a trap, her gestures overly warm. Extra hugs for Mia and Noah, homemade lasagna for dinner, soft touches on Ethan's arm. Ethan played along, but his heart was guarded. He watched her, noting the way her eyes lingered on her phone, the faint tremor in her voice when she mentioned work. She'd gone to HR, named Gavin's other targets, and helped spark the investigation, but Ethan needed more than her actions. He needed her to choose him, fully, without the shadow of temptation. The media storm intensified. A second outlet picked up the story, publishing redacted texts from Gavin's burner phone, including one to an unnamed employee. "You're my ticket to the top, but you've got to play the game." The backlash was swift. Gavin's LinkedIn profile vanished, his name scrubbed from the company's website. A former colleague posted a cryptic tweet, "Karma's real." Some people finally get what they deserve. Ethan read it from his office, a faint smile tugging at his lips. But he wasn't done. Gavin was a snake, and snakes slithered back unless you crushed them. A package arrived at their doorstep on a rainy Tuesday. No sender listed, just a plain USB drive inside. Ethan plugged it into his laptop, his pulse quickening. It was a video, a man in his late 20s, nervous, sitting in a hotel room. "I was Gavin Holt's assistant," he said, his voice shaky. "I saw everything. How he targeted women, bribed HR to bury complaints, even faked expense reports to cover his tracks. I stayed quiet too long. This is for the ones he hurt." The video detailed dates, names, and incidents, including Nora's visit to Gavin's condo. Ethan's chest tightened, but the assistant's final words struck deeper. He thought he was untouchable. He was wrong. Ethan showed Nora the video that night, after the kids were asleep. She sat on the couch, her hands clasped tightly, her face pale as the screen glowed. When it ended, she broke, sobs shaking her shoulders. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," she whispered. "Not just for what I did, but for what I almost became." He didn't comfort her, not yet. "Why did you go to his place, Nora? Tell me the truth." She wiped her eyes, her voice raw. "He made me feel seen, like my work mattered. You used to do that, but somewhere along the way, we stopped noticing each other. I didn't want him, not really. I wanted to feel like I was enough. But I stopped before it went too far. I swear." Ethan exhaled, the weight of her words settling. He'd been so focused on Gavin, he hadn't seen his own role, the late nights at work, the autopilot of their marriage. "I almost lost you once before," he said, his voice low. "Not to Gavin, but in Denver. I stood on the edge of cheating 2 years ago. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you. But I know what that pull feels like, and I know what it costs." Nora's eyes widened, fresh tears spilling. "Why didn't you?" "Because I remembered what I'd lose," he said. "You. Us." She reached for his hand, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't pull away. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a start. They agreed to therapy the next day, committing to twice-weekly sessions. They laid everything bare. Ethan's past, Nora's temptation, the slow drift that had left them vulnerable. Some sessions ended in tears, others in silence, but they kept going, rebuilding brick by brick. Ethan wasn't done with Gavin, though. He sent the assistant's video to Marcus, who ensured it reached the media anonymously. The story exploded again. Ex-assistant exposes tech VP's corruption. Gavin's career was obliterated, his name toxic. A week later, Marcus called Ethan. Holt applied for a job in Seattle. Someone sent the files to the hiring firm. He's blacklisted now. Ethan smiled faintly. "Good. Let him know it was me." Marcus chuckled. "Already did. He's not coming for you. He's too busy hiding." At home, things shifted. Mia noticed first, drawing pictures of the family together, her crayons bright with hope. Ethan and Nora started small, cooking together, watching old comedies, falling asleep tangled on the couch. One night, Nora pulled a dress from her closet, a sleek black one Gavin had complimented. "Burn it," she said, handing it to Ethan. They took it to the backyard, lit a fire pit, and watched it turn to ash, the flames reflecting in their eyes. No words were needed. Months later, in the soft light of spring, Ethan was cleaning the garage when he found a box of old letters from their early years. Tucked inside was a note Nora had written but never given him, dated 3 years ago, around the time of his near slip in Denver. "Ethan's been distant lately. I trust him, but something feels off. I love him too much to let this break us." He brought it to her, his heart heavy. Nora read it, tears welling. "I don't even remember writing this," she said. "But it's when we almost lost each other." "And didn't," Ethan said, his voice steady. "We survived twice, Nora. The third time, we fought." She leaned into him, her forehead against his. "No more fighting anyone but you." 3 days later, Marcus called with a final update. "Holt's gone quiet. Moved out of state. No job prospects. You're clear." Ethan hung up, walking into the kitchen where Nora was laughing with the kids, flour on her cheeks from baking. He paused in the doorway, watching his family, his war finally over. He'd won, not by hiding the truth, but by facing it head-on with Nora by his side. The scars remained, but they were proof of survival, of a love that had endured its darkest test.